It is Sunday night, November 17th. We are halfway through November already. We are coming down to the end of the Wise Guys for 2024, but we got a treat for you guys tonight. Michael, how was your Sunday, my friend?
It got a lot better about 10 minutes ago.
I've been that way for a little over an hour myself.
15. And yes, hats off to your Buffalo Bills. And hats off to your Buffalo Bills. Tastes like victory, right?
My man crush has now been replaced from Ryan Reynolds to Josh Allen.
Until he throws 3 picks next week. But James, we have someone backstage. Alex Ruiz from Chicago, Illinois, and the Row 7 podcast. Sir, it has been way too fucking long.
It has been, gents. How are we doing tonight?
Better question is how you doing?
Well, you know what? I'm in a celebratory mood because the only thing that we had to celebrate today was my father's 70th birthday. So cheers to him. Kudos to him. This guy for him. So things are well here in Chicago. The weather's turning, but, our sports suck. But, what's new?
We're getting snow here on Thursday. When is it coming for you, they're saying?
We're supposed to get snow, I think, Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. Kind of, it's that rain snow stuff. So
yeah, they're telling us like 2 inches between like Thursday and Friday.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about measurable snow, but we'll see what happens. We'll take it day by day, play it by ear.
Film at 11.
I'm not saying anything.
You know why, Mike?
Do it.
Fuck it.
No, we didn't hear the first part of it. Do it again.
Rusty cunt bucket.
So there's a story behind that. Obviously, that's Jeremy Piven and Entourage. Well, last week we were a little bitter because of things that had happened in the world. And we found that, and we decided to put it on the soundboard because, well, you've dealt with us for a long time now.
You guys are like brothers.
Before
Mike, I get the feeling that might actually somehow, some way work its way into the translator intro by Thanksgiving.
Really?
I've got Thursday and Friday. I had Thursday and Friday off yesterday. This week, I get it off next week as well. So I got a couple of things in the works, some irons in the fire here.
Very nice. I have a few days, partial days off that week because Steph works retail, so of course she's working all that week, and it's end of month, so I'll be half day there. Bobby's off all week, so I'll be between the two, and it'll be crazy.
When's his Thanksgiving vacation?
That whole week. We do. It's called Pie with My Pumpkin. You get a parent comes in, they have like a little dessert after school on Friday the 22nd, and then he's off that whole week. And with Steph's work schedule, we're staying home. I'm not even doing a turkey this year. Jim, I'm making crock-pot lasagna.
Ooh. Although,
and two desserts.
They were showing turducken on the close of the Browns game today, and it's like, now I kind of want turducken.
They have to show turducken on the Browns game. It's the only reason anyone would fucking watch. But, James, we've got a bunch to get to tonight. We only got Alex for a short time. So what do you say we get to our hat trick for the evening and take advantage of our time with Mr. Alex here?
It's the 3 biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guys hat trick.
I told you he did some stuff.
That was like breaking news right there on local news right there.
Right?
That's.
And topic number 1, the final couple weeks of college football are here upon us. We had 6 ranked teams lose yesterday. Of course, Alex had a very interesting game in his hometown yesterday as Northwestern played host to Ohio State at Wrigley Field, where they sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" between the third and fourth quarter. And yes, there was a beer cup snake.
And which is, you figure, kind of appropriate, because having to actually, anyone who sat through and watched that game all the way up until the fourth quarter, as much of a game that it did not turn into, felt like running into the brick wall out there in center field.
I don't know about. I mean, I watched most of it. Shout out to our buddy, friend of the show, Mr. Nick Greedies, for giving me his YouTube TV subscription so I can watch them. Oh, by the way, he closed on his house on Friday, dude.
Cool.
2
Very
blocks
cool.
from Brainerd Park.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was watching some of it, and a great story with Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from Ohio State who lost his mom in a drive-by a couple years ago. 4 catches, 2 touchdowns in his hometown of Chicago. So big up to him. But we had 6 ranked teams lose yesterday. Kansas went into BYU and beat BYU, previously undefeated, which this is going to bother Jim. Do you know who has the lead in the Big 12 now, Jim?
I know, yeah. They're in a mathematical tie right now because the second tiebreaker is overall record. But yeah, that would be Colorado.
Coach Prime in Colorado is on a run to the Big 12 championship game and possibly a playoff spot before Shador is drafted by the Browns and his life is ruined. You covered up my last part.
Yeah, with good reason, because the worst thing that could happen to college football is he gets into the playoff.
No, I said before Shador is drafted by the Browns and they ruin his life.
Couldn't get any worse.
I don't know. I'd kind of like to be Deion's kid with all that money. It's just me. So, gentlemen, I want to throw this out there. As we are in the first year of the 12-team playoff, we have seen the rankings. We have heard the belly aching from the SEC shills, as it were, that last week, well, first of all, 4 of the top 5 teams in the country are in the Big Ten, with the lone team not in the Big Ten being Texas, with Georgia with 2 losses, Bama with 2 losses, Texas with a loss to Georgia, Bama lost to fucking Vandy. Here's my question. Alex, I'm going to start with you, and I know you're not the biggest of the college football guys in the room, but with a 12-team playoff, do you expect more chaos or do you expect less chaos than the 4-team?
I think more chaos. I mean, the bits and pieces of college football that I've been able to take in and when I have a free Saturday, just because I listen to a lot of local sports talk, and they have like a Friday preview of what's going to happen on Saturday, and you listen to one of the guys who's got I guess you can say he's kind of like an insider. He tells you like all the games like to picks and then bets and stuff like that, and a lot of his bets have surprisingly hit, and they've all been the upsets. So obviously those games that have kind of peaked in here and there have been chaos, and this was now probably going back 5-6 weeks ago. So I can only imagine with the remaining schedule, probably even more chaotic.
Jim, let me go here with you. We are almost to a point where there could be 7 different teams in line to play in the SEC championship game, with actual things on Reddit that run tiebreakers being employed by the SEC right now to try and find a way to get 2 teams in the championship game since they no longer have divisions. Where do you see this being harder to dissect now than a 4-team, or do you see this being easier because the cream will end up rising to the top?
Let me actually throw out the rankings and the model that I put together based exclusively off of today's AP rankings, like we've actually done the last couple of weeks. And This is going to be, once we get to the playoff model, this is something that college football fans were dreaming about when this thing expanded to 12, basically tripling the field. But it's something that's going to make the committee absolutely want to stab each other in the throat and gouge their eyes out. And you're going to see why here in just a couple of seconds.
Please. Sorry. All right, so Oregon, Texas. Why does Notre Dame get a bye?
because they're in the top 5.
Yeah, but you got to win your conference to get a top 4 spot.
Doesn't matter because at this particular point with this model, BYU as one of the power conference leaders is outside the top 12. So you got a Notre Dame team that actually only has one loss that would supplant that. You're not going to put Notre Dame in that random field if they're that much better than your weakest conference.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They've already said in the bylaws the top 4 conference champions are getting the byes. So right now it'd be Oregon, it'd be Texas, I think, in the
It would be
SEC.
Oregon, Texas, Miami, and BYU. And 2 of those teams are outside of the top 10, and BYU is in danger of falling completely out of the top 15.
Doesn't matter. If you win your conference and you're a power conference, you're going to get in the top 4.
There's no way that the committee, even though that they set the bylaws, if Notre Dame finishes in the top 3, there's no way that they are going to put a number 3 ranked Notre Dame in an opening round matchup and not give them the bye, especially if the winner of the Big 12 is somewhere around 15. It's not going to happen.
Well, then they'd be rewriting their bylaws a year in. Because that's the thing. The data point is you have to win the conference in order to get a top 4 seed. End of story. By the way, I don't think Notre Dame wins on Saturday. I think Army's going to beat them.
I think Notre Dame wins that game by 2 scores.
Well, we'll see. If Army wins that game, you don't even worry about the rest of it. They are going to end up being the top.
They'll be the
five
group of
school.
5 team and probably supplant
Boise.
Yeah. Because right
So
now,
here's-
Boise's at 12, Army's at 18. Boise at this particular point, I don't even know with the process of elimination, you may actually have to have Boise in already at this point as an at-large team, and they wouldn't even really qualify as a group of 5 because there's a conceivable possibility with the fact that Ohio State and Indiana play this weekend. Notre Dame and Army play this weekend. What happens if Ohio State, if Indiana beats Ohio State, hands them their second loss? The Buckeyes drop dramatically back. What if Army beats Notre Dame? Notre Dame takes that tumble way out of 6, and this model is useless. You're going to have at least one more loss amongst those SEC teams between Texas, Alabama, Georgia. Ole Miss and Tennessee already have 2 losses and are hanging on by a thread. Miami's not guaranteed anything right now, sitting at 11 in the ACC because, oh yeah, Mike, can you name who's leading the ACC right now?
That would be Southern Methodist, James.
And SMU right now is ranked 13th. So they are only 2 spots behind Miami in the current AP poll. So SMU could completely knock Miami right out of these rankings. So this thing could get even more topsy-turvy to where you've got Boise, even though they're a group of 5 team, there's certain people that actually think that enough dominoes could fall that Boise could possibly jump themselves into a first-round bye.
I don't think they're going to give...
Well, here's the thing. Going back to the model, and I'm sorry to cut you off with that, if Notre Dame is good enough and maybe jumps into the top 5 or even the top 3 by the time everything sorts out, even though they don't play a conference championship, you would still have BYU in that high field where even though right now BYU is sitting at 14, they're outside the model, even though that they're leading their conference, you would probably see a scenario to where the party crasher gets that bye and then slots BYU as a conference champion into the 5 spot, which means right now the Buckeyes in this model are 2nd, but they get slotted 6th.
Yeah, and they're going to get slotted 5th or 6th if they don't win the Big Ten. Let me say this. Whoever wins the Big Ten is going to be the number 1 overall seed in this whole thing. They're going to be. The SEC, because that'll mean if it goes the way I'm hoping it does, and again, that's because I'm a homer, but you have Ohio State has probably the best loss in the country. You go to number 1, you lose by 1 point on their field. Questionable calls and coaching notwithstanding. Oregon just had a hard time with Wisconsin in the elements. because it was cold as hell in Madison. You're going to have Jim, you know me, I'm looking forward to a Southern team having to go up north. And Alex, if you look at the bottom, the thing he's got running, you have Alabama having to go to Indiana in December.
Not a good time of the year for Alabama to come to.
You have
Indiana.
Georgia having to go to Happy Valley.
Same situation. Not good.
I'm praying to God.
And in this model, you'd have Mississippi going to Columbus, with Columbus being the 6th seed.
Good fucking God, dude.
I'll tell you what, though, with this model, you would get BYU and Boise. That would be fun.
That would be a good game. That would be Ole Miss and Ohio State and Columbus, Penn State and Georgia. Dude, if those 3 teams from the SEC get in and they all have to go north, Paul Feinbaum might have a fucking stroke.
Because he's making the argument today that Tennessee should be, even with that loss, should be a playoff team. Look at this model right now because of what happened and the fact that Notre Dame's resume just gets stronger and stronger. Notre Dame's going to end up getting one of those buys at this point, and Tennessee is completely shut out in this model.
They are, and I think if they gave Notre Dame a bye because they don't have a conference, it would be spitting in the face of a conference champion. Now, the committee is used to doing that. Look what they did last year. And of course, the guy running the committee this year is the AD from fucking Michigan. So, he's a piece of garbage too. Sorry, Alex, but I'm not wrong.
You're good.
I can't wait till they hang 100 on that team in 2 weeks. But in all seriousness, this is exactly what we were hoping we would get with a 12-team playoff. Now, Jim, I'm going to ask you the question before year 1. Are they going to expand in 2 years? Or whenever the contract's up? Do you think they go to 16?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
The reason being is that every other sport that you see, baseball, somebody gets a bye. In the NFL, the top 2 teams in the conference get a bye. You got these power conferences that the last thing that they want to do is run into a team that catches lightning in a bottle. Oregon, hosts a game, or Texas hosts a game in that first weekend and loses. It does not do well for them. Yeah, it actually provides a great storyline, but let's also be honest with that, is that it kind of loses a lot of the luster. Go look at the NFL, where you've got a number 1 seed who doesn't even really make a conference championship game or goes out earlier. Look at what Baltimore did last year.
I was going to say, don't make fun of the Ravens yet. We're not there.
It's, you get the Ravens, who have a history of going out a lot earlier than expected. If it was anybody other than Kansas City, a lot of luster comes off of that. If you've got an Oregon, an Ohio State, a Texas, an Alabama, a Georgia, and one of those teams really goes out before the Final Four, it takes unless one of those other blue bloods is the one that knocks them out, it takes a lot of shine off of that trophy.
Alex, let me ask you this question. And then, Jim, I want to hear what your response is to this. Now, granted, college football is more of a blue blood sport than college basketball, because our favorite thing to do in March is watch that Cinderella go far. Do you think a team, if a Cinderella catches lightning in a bottle, a Boise, an Army, and they win a game, Alex, do you think that's bad for it, or do you think that's good for it?
I think it's good for it. I've just been a big proponent in the past. Always watching the college football playoffs. It was always Alabama, Oklahoma, LSU, Ohio State, which no shot at them. Like, they all had their significant run and their days in the sun, but kind of seeing that mix of this younger, these, I guess, up and coming teams. Now that the money is kind of getting spread across, the entire landscape of NCAA, it's kind of nice to see just a mix of different teams getting in the mix and having a shot to be on national television and, one of those primetime games versus, always seeing the LSU Oklahoma kind of game. So I'm a proponent of seeing somebody who, can be like, the knight in shining armor and, catch everybody's heart and basically be like, oh, wow, I can get behind that team because, they ran the gauntlet and when 10-1, 11-2, whatever it may be. But they're here now and, they're taking advantage of every moment they got.
And basically, that's how the BCS became popular. You're talking about the Boise game against Oklahoma with the Statue of Liberty play and all that, and the hook and ladder and whatnot. So, Jim, let me ask you this: if a Cinderella gets a W, like a Boise, say and I mentioned Army, I'm hoping it's Army because for a service academy to do something like that would be just amazing.
Right, like an SMU. Well, then again, you can't even really call SMU a Cinderella just because they're playing this well now, a part of a major conference. But yeah, I see your point. Somebody like, like Tulane, for all that matter, for that matter, who's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah, Jim, do you like the intrigue of having a Cinderella get a W, or are you just fixated on the fact that they're not gonna?
It'd be great to see, but it would be, I think the best way I can equate it to would be TCU last year. TCU got hot. They won their semifinal game and got run off the field by Michigan. Eventually, time catches up with you. It's not like, in college basketball, it could go either way, especially when you're riding hot hands and you've actually got sustainability going throughout. When St. Peter's had that great run a few years ago as a 15 where they knocked off Kentucky, when Oakland did it last year against Kentucky, they were still competitive in their second round games when we actually had that number one knockoff, Purdue a couple of years, when Fairleigh Dickinson knocked off Purdue a couple of years ago, the Zach Edey club, or 2 years ago. What happened? They certainly were not nearly as competitive in the second round because they caught their lightning in the bottle. They had their moment because it's such a more expanded tournament. In the NCAA, with college football, it's a much different animal because you've got the 53-man roster. It's a much more physical game. So you're going to really, to quote your Randy Savage line, the cream rising to the top. It's a lot harder to do in college football than it is in college basketball.
Yeah, but this is going to be so much fun. I mean, we're going to have a show the night of, or the night before. Oh no, the night they do the rankings. We will come to you that night. Maybe that should be the Four Horsemen episode, so all of us can do that Charlie Day thing with the fucking everything all over the place.
Or the baseball playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be Karnacki going all the fucking graphs and shit.
Please don't bring that name up right now.
Sorry. But that's going to be fun. I can't wait for that. I'm hoping that, things bounce my way and I am more invested this year than I was last year, obviously. But Jim, since we only have Alex for so long, I think we should get to the newest invention on the Wise Guys platform. And this, my friend, is quite simply the Wise Guys game show. And its title is
Cue music.
Defend Your Dumpster Fire.
Oh, God.
We were going to say Defend Your Shit Show, but we figured it'd be worse this way. We have 4 teams. We have 4 teams in the NFL right now that came into this season with relatively decent expectations. And all they've gotten are fucking whammies. We have,
there was going to be a 4th one in here, which we could probably even talk about a wild card, and maybe the 3 of us go round and round with it. But yeah, it just so happened that the 3 biggest dumpster fires in the NFL this year happen to be from the 3 cities that we all support.
So let's start at the top, or in this case, the bottom. Alex, we will give you the floor. Defend your dumpster fire. That is the Chicago Bears.
There is no fucking defense. They're inept. Okay, I'm really at peace right now. I don't know why I exploded like that for a second, but I think that you could put like somebody who's I need to rewind that. I got to stay PC because otherwise I'm gonna get canceled.
Excuse me. This is our show. We just played the words rusty cunt bucket at the beginning. I don't think you're going to be.
Cunt bucket.
Bring it. Bring it.
I think you just need to bring like you could put geriatric people in charge of this organization, and they probably would do a better job of kind of running it. I'd almost like to see fucking Jerry Reinsdorf get his hands in a pot with the Chicago Bears, and he can relocate that team too.
Let me pose the question, Alex. The Chicago White Sox we have banished to Azerbaijan.
Correct.
Where are the Chicago Bears going?
The Sudan.
Not Ghana?
No, the Sudan.
No.
Please tell me somebody got that reference.
I did. And they were, and if you're talking about them going somewhere and drinking Kool-Aid and putting us out of our misery, it's Guyana, not Ghana.
that too. I mean, it's comical. I mean, I was watching bits and pieces of the game today because in theory, like everybody says, oh, it's the Bears Packers rivalry. It's not a rivalry. Rivalry in like if you say the word rivalry, it means like there's some type of competition. The Bears have gotten their ass whipped 11 times in a row. There's no competition there. You just gotten, trained 11 times over. It is what it is.
It's not a rivalry. It's a human centipede.
It really is. It's just a ram. That's all it is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's very much on par. Thank you, Jim.
So I'm flipping through Facebook the other day, and I was thinking about you when I heard this.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little history.
Hmm?
Going back to Jay Cutler, one coach and GM bring in Jay Cutler. After the first season, they're fired. Bring in the next one who didn't bring him in. Some success. That they get rid of Jay Cutler. They bring in Trubisky. That coach and GM after one season gets fired. They bring in another coach and GM who did not draft Mitchell Trubisky. Have problems. Draft Justin Fields. After one season, that GM and coach get fired. I got to ask the question because we're going to leave Jim for last because that is the biggest dumpster fire in all of fucking sport in comparison what the other two teams in that town are doing. But let me ask this question of you. Does Eberflus last the entire season?
Yeah, because the Chicago Bears don't fire head coaches in the middle of season because they have some sort of pride, just that fantastic legacy of just winning. But ultimately, as you've mentioned in the past with the coach and GM, this head coach after the season is done in what do we have left? 7 or 8 games is left in the season,
something like that.
He will also be fired as well too into the sun, and then they will go and find another coordinator from probably another team in Canada, bring him down here, say that he's credible, say that he's got some skills, he's going to right the ship, and it'll be the same thing. And then what I would hate to see, because it happened in recent past with Justin Fields, you screwed him up, and now you've basically turned him into a career-long backup when he probably does have some significant potential, that you're probably going to do the same thing here with Caleb Williams. And I think the kid's got some talent. I'm not saying he's Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Joe Namath, anything like that, but I think he's got the potential to be something that Chicago could be proud of. But because you have a clusterfuck of an organization above him and coaching, the team will never see success. And it pains me because I watch the games at home. I've gone to a couple games this year. and like the stadium is packed and Bears fans are passionate and we want to see the team that wins. And it's like being in a marriage and like your spouse hates you. Like you really want to be in it for the long haul and they just despise you. That's really what it is.
Let me post this question here. We all know that. Well, let me go around the horn here. Who's more dead man walking right now, Eberflus or Mike McCarthy?
Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy.
Okay, that being said, we all think that Eberflus is not gonna be back with them next year. Alex, do you think that they go retread to where maybe they go grab a guy like McCarthy, or they get um like an Arthur Smith, or do you think actually they go like upcoming coordinator route, like a Bobby Babich, the defensive coordinator from Buffalo, who everyone is talking is going to be the next great young head coach, converted from coordinator guy?
Or the kid, or the OC from Houston, the one that's working with CJ Stroud.
Yep.
I think what is more likely to happen is probably one of these hot up and coming coordinators on the defensive or offensive side will likely get the gig. I really would like to see them go out and find like a coach that maybe could be retired right now, or maybe is just kind of a commentator for a network on ESPN, Fox, CBS kind of thing, and have him be kind of like a hard-nosed coach, because that's really what this team needs. They need like a Mike Tomlin kind of coach.
Kind of like so you're equating them going out and doing something like that then when the Raiders pulled Mike Mayock out of the broadcast booth to be their general manager, and it started working for a little bit. Mike, the guy that you were thinking of real quick was Bobby Slowick.
Yeah.
Bobby Slowick. So would you be upset if Rex Ryan was the next head coach of the Chicago Bears?
No, I think at this point there's just utter chaos in the locker room, and they're trying to do really what they can to do like quality control and keep it under wraps. But you can really kind of tell that because there's no accountability, and really no accountability from your head coach, as we've kind of seen in the games and post game. You need somebody who I would, and I know this would never happen. This is the pipe dream of all pipe dreams. But I would really love to see them go out and get like a coach like a Mike Tomlin, who's really going to come in and say like, this is my shit and this is how it's going to run. And if you don't want to be in this room, there's the door. That's really what they need. Because right now it's just kind of like the circus, and everybody gets to kind of play their own game at the circus. I mean, I don't know if you guys have really tuned in too much to the Bears, which I'm sure you haven't, because you got a little bit of chaos, as you know, in your respective teams. But a few weeks back, they were on the road in Washington, and it was the Hail Mary play where they should have won the game. And you got one of your D-backs who was celebrating with the crowd like 20 yards away from the play. And then he somehow finds his way back into the play and tips the ball right into the hands of the Commanders wide receiver. And from that moment on, it has just been Six Flags downward on a roller coaster.
Do you see is there any sort of, am I completely nuts here? We're thinking that the Bears completely flipped a script here where they can actually throw a bunch of money at somebody who's going to want total autonomous control with personnel, general manager, head coach, somebody maybe like, I'm not saying that he's a possibility, but somebody who's going to want that level of control like a Belichick would.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that happen, but ultimately I think the overarching problem, and you guys can probably certainly attest to this, but it's the ownership. The McCaskey family who owns this, Virginia being the main stakeholder, as terrible as it says, she needs to either pass on or sell the team for really any changes to kind of really happen, because ultimately that them as the overarching owners of the team, they kind of bring somebody in who's just a yes man, who will do exactly what they say, versus kind of having that autonomy and that full control of like, hey, this is who I'm going to bring, who I want as my GM, this is who I want as my coordinators, this is who I want as assistants, from to video room, to quality, to uniforms, whatever it may be. I think that until something like that really happens, and this ownership kind of moves on, nothing will ultimately change. They'll just kind of bring in a new coordinator, a hot coordinator, and he'll have some reins and some strings to pull, but it won't be the full gauntlet, and it'll lead to more chaos probably within another 2 to 3 years. That's all that happens.
So it's very much kind of, so you're saying essentially with the ownership group, they kind of handcuffed, even going out and getting a top-notch head coach. The best way I can equate this is the Knicks with James Dolan being a complete moron. And even though Tom Thibodeau is a great coach, he's basically been handcuffed. And now let's throw this over to Mike. Michael, please defend the New York Jets.
Why?
I'm not paying you for this, so
You're not paying me for any of this. All right, here's how hold on. Here's how I can defend the New York Jets. They're trying to follow a recipe that got them to 2 consecutive AFC Championship games years ago. They had, in my opinion, the closest thing to a franchise quarterback they've had since really Ken O'Brien. That's how long I've been alive. In Chad Pennington. Well, then they fucked Chad Pennington hard, and they went and got Brett Favre. They did that to Chad Pennington. And what did Pennington do? Go out and win a division title with Miami that year. So then they get Favre, and the Favre experiment falls in their face, and mostly because of dick pics, not because of play.
That's what she said.
He's gone after 1 year, and they draft Sanchez. They bring in Rex Ryan. They go to the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row. And really, what?
So essentially, yeah, the wheels have completely come off now. So you've gone from Chad Pennington getting ass raped to
Wait,
dick pics with Favre to
a foot fetish with Rex Ryan.
Man, his own lineman's anus.
Butt fumble.
Hold on. You forget about the Rex Ryan foot fetish thing.
Oh my god,
dude! Wait. That's my favorite cut job he's done. I mean, but here's the thing. Theoretically, going into the season, anybody who thought this team was going to be a Super Bowl contender worked at ESPN because it's a good story, and Mike Greenberg's a whiny bitch when they're terrible. This team had holes all over it. You're talking about the best part of the defense was a secondary. Well, guess what? They're not throwing a ball near Sauce Gardner anymore. They figured that out. You're talking about everybody's top corner and a safety is rotating to the side of the field where Garrett Wilson is. So they go out and make a move for Devontae Adams. Well, he's a shell of himself. Aaron Rodgers is my age. It's insanity. I understand trying to get Rodgers because of the way he played his final year in Green Bay. He played well. The big issue with the Jets was Zach Wilson. But again, it goes back to the ownership. Woody Johnson is a fucking moron. His GM doesn't know how to draft. And that seems to be a Jets thing. It's almost like the New York Jets sold their soul to the devil to beat the Colts in Super Bowl III. And this has just been all the bullshit since. You have, years ago, you have a defensive line called the New York Sack Exchange with 4 dudes, 3 of whom are in the Hall of Fame. And you can't get out of the first round. So what do? You find a quarterback. Oh, that's great. Let's go back to Alabama, draft Richard Todd. He's terrible. Let's go into the 83 draft and draft Ken O'Brien over Dan Marino. You fucking morons. And then as you go along, you try and I will throw 3 names at you to play quarterback for the New York Jets. Browning Nagel. Zach Wilson. Horrific. My personal favorite's Ray Lucas. And oh, by the way, they won a game with Tom Tupa, the punter, as their quarterback. This is the bullshit that Jet fans have dealt with for 40 some years.
Buckeye alumnus Tom Tupa.
Dude,
Back
he
when
threw 2 touchdowns.
I was a Buckeye fan.
Yeah, he threw 2 touchdowns to fucking Keyshawn Johnson that day. And you know that you are a shit organization top to bottom when one of your greatest wide receivers in Keyshawn Johnson is arguing with a guy on ESPN about quarterbacks that threw to him, and he looks at him and he goes, Rick Meyer. Just called him out. But here's the funny thing. And Jim, we will now give you the table because neither of these two teams are the biggest shit show in the NFL. That would be the Bill Cosby-less Cleveland Browns,
who are now 2-8, lost 2 in a row, are dead last in not only the AFC North, but with the fact that with a loss this coming Thursday night will be the worst team, a loss to Pittsburgh on Thursday Night Football nonetheless, will actually be tied with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jaguars will actually have the tiebreaker as only one of 2 teams the Browns have beaten this year. Jameis Winston threw for 395 yards today. The Browns did not turn the ball over and lost by 3 scores. Michael has his hand raised.
This is why I send karma text messages to everybody I know that's a Cleveland fan, except you, because you've been against this from the beginning. All the people I know that were on the I would say the Deshaun table, but that's just fucked up. I send either the picture of Morticia, the gif of Morticia Adams drinking the tea, and it says "Karma got you," or I send the one of Baker Mayfield in the Buccaneers jersey winking at them.
The Browns are 28th in passing yards at 183.4. That's actually still more yards than Watson averaged all year, and it's based off of basically 2 Jameis Winston games. Jameis Winston had more passing yards in the first half today than Deshaun Watson had in 4 quarters in any game until he got hurt. That's the second time this year that that's happened.
Hey,
The
Jim,
Browns-
can I give Alex the worst stat you've ever heard? Alex, the Cleveland Cavaliers have won more games in a row this year than the Cleveland Browns have sniffed winning since Deshaun Watson was acquired.
And how many years has that been now? 3?
3.
The Cavs have rattled off 15 wins this season. The Cleveland Browns only have 11 wins with Deshaun Watson under center in 3 years. And 6
And they're on the hook.
year.
And they're on the hook for $172 million.
If they cut him at the end of the year, they will take a $172 million cap hit, and they will be, as it stands right now, even with LTIR and some of that money coming off with the guaranteed money, the Cleveland Browns are over $40 million over the salary cap for next year. The only team that's worse right now are the New Orleans Saints, who are $74 million over the cap based off of the Derek Carr signing and the fact that they're still actually going to pay Marshawn Lattimore, even though they traded him to Washington. And Lattimore's making 36.
I mean, so what are they going to do? I guess are they going to stick this out, or are they going to cut him?
They're going to build a new stadium.
They're definitely moving on, because now it's to the point where it was asked during the post-game press conference today of one Mr. Myles Garrett, how do you guys stay motivated for this thing spiraling out of control, especially after you put up all those numbers, but you don't get complimentary football, today. And Myles easily paused for 10 or 15 seconds. I was listening to this on the radio on the drive home from my aunt's, and it definitely sounded like he wanted to come off that podium and strangle the reporter. And that's not like Myles.
No, it's not. And by the way, that's 2 first ballot Hall of Famers that Jimmy Haslam has wasted their fucking career. But at least Miles got to the playoffs twice.
Yeah, it's with the talk of the stadium now moving forward, Alex, by the time that thing gets built and opened, current Huntington Bank Field, as it's now known, will have been open 30 years and has never hosted a playoff game.
Damn.
There is no other. So Mike and I went over this when they officially announced the move. There is no other stadium in football that can boast that.
And that's crazy because it felt like it was just a couple of years ago where like they were on the right track and like they were headed to the playoffs and they were going to make a run and the just.
Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? They trusted
$240 million.
No, Baker tore his labrum. That's what happened. Go back to the minute.
This entire thing, we can blame one person and one person only.
You.
Anthony Schwartz.
Oh, okay. Well, you were at the game and you always take the hit for it, so I was just busting your ass. Yeah, because a guy gave up on a route.
They are ranked in the bottom third of the NFL in all 4 major categories. 28th in passing yards, 28th in rushing yards, 29th in points, and 21st in points allowed.
So I know that they just traded I forgot his name.
Amari Cooper.
Zadarius Smith.
He's with the Lions. I mean, are they at the spot now where like anybody who's got some credibility to their name that's eating up significant cap, they're going to just move on from them, or
they can't?
There are a lot of people, and my father included, actually saying in the offseason, maybe trade Myles Garrett and get 2 first-round picks if you're going to blow this whole thing up. But it would never happen because if either he or Nick Chubb were to I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry.
Please,
Nicholas Jamal Chubb.
Thank you.
If either of them were salary cap casualties or moved on, this franchise, this will have officially lost the fan base.
Let me expand on that real quick.
It wouldn't be as bad as 1-31 because that's what they were going for. They were looking to be as bad as possible. This would actually be worse than the 26-game Cavalier losing streak. Because the Cavaliers had talent and just couldn't do anything with it, and we knew it was going to be bad. We didn't think it was going to be that bad. The fact that they put all these assets into a guy who and it gets even worse today as DeJuan Jones is lost for the year, with a severe, I want to say it was another leg injury, so he's out for the season. So it just goes from bad to worse to the fact that now they go down to New Orleans. It's a tough game. It's 14-all. Dustin Hopkins misses 3 kicks, only 2 of which counts. He missed a 33-yarder that he basically hooked further left than Noah Ruggles did in that playoff game for the Buckeyes. I make that point to make this point, Michael, and it's not a deliberate slight. New Orleans jumps offside. They move it 5 yards closer. Browns basically go for it on 4th down. Get the first down. 3 plays later, don't really move the ball at all. It's a 27-yard field goal. He shanks it further left.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
So he missed 2 kicks that weren't even close going left and an extra point going left in a building with no wind or anything, all within a span of 15 minutes of real time.
Let me go back to your Myles Garrett trade. They're not getting 2 first-rounders for this because you're forgetting something in the wish list for that. This is the owner that threw a quarterback a fully guaranteed contract. No one is going to help him. No one is going to feel sorry for him. Jimmy Haslam. And this is the worst part about it. Johnny Football doing a Tony Montana impersonation during his time in fucking Cleveland is not the worst quarterback decision this franchise has ever made. Think about that. The man who did more blow than time on the fucking iPad watching film is not the worst quarterback decision this franchise has ever made. Not only did they make a horrific quarterback decision, they've turned the Houston Texans into a perennial fucking playoff team.
Although the Texans with a loss tomorrow are barely at 500, and they are holding on to that division lead by the skin of their teeth. This is actually year 2 regression of CJ Stroud that I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't think his numbers are that different. I honestly don't. I mean, we'll look them up later because we only got so much more time with Alex.
Right.
But I'll leave this as the last point on the Browns, and Jim, I'll go back to you with this real quick. You will get a 4th round pick for Miles.
You're trying to tell me that Detroit at 9-1, even after getting Zadarius Smith, with the possibility that they could get Aiden Hutchinson back, if now you can't make the trade now, but you're trying to tell me that somebody, let's say Detroit, Dan Campbell goes Dan Campbell again, and let's say makes that call and blows it in the Super Bowl. You're telling me if Detroit had the room to be able to go out and get that one guy that's going to turn their defense into just as dominating a force as their offense, is not going to offer up at least one first round, maybe a 1 and a 3, a 1 and a 2, maybe 2 1s, considering they're going to be back end ones that Jimmy Haslam would not jump at that opportunity. We know he's a moron. He can't be that stupid, because you're going to be drafting in the top 10. So which means you're going to have a Jackson Dart, a Cam Ward, possibly a Dylan Gabriel in your roster next year, possibly starting day 1, depending on what happens, as I just knocked my microphone halfway across the table, with the fact that there is no way possible that you can bring 4 back under center next year. No way. You will take the cap hit, because now you're going to be into a 2 to 3 year rebuild anyway. The thing is when you brought him in, you set your franchise back so far because you stripped him of 3 first round picks for a guy you knew who actually had a recent injury history and was going to be under a lot of sanction and investigation by the NFL. And now you break him off, and you're going to be in salary cap hell. So it's going to be a 5-year plan with Watson. The problem is he's not going to be on your roster. So you lose your draft picks, but now you get your draft picks back, but you don't have the capital to work with. So it was going to be a 5-year plan with him anyway, which is why the Cleveland Browns are the biggest dumpster fire. So even if they cut him loose as the worst trade in the history of the NFL, yes, even more than the Herschel Walker trade, it's still something that it's still regressing your franchise even after it's gone for the foreseeable future, because there is no other way around it unless you start dumping salary of marquee talent, which they're going to have to do. So I could also see a possibility if somebody wanted to offer up a 1 for a Denzel Ward, even with his injury history, bye-bye. And I'm not just saying that just because his nickname is Hospital Ward, Burnt Toast. He's a former Buckeye. You call it whatever you want. He had the Browns' only 2nd interception of the day today, and then 2 plays later left the game with an injury.
Take a deep breath. And now let me blow your whole thing away. 2 things. 1, Haslam would take the deal. I don't think the Lions are stupid enough to give up a first-round pick for Myles Garrett. I don't. Here's why. They basically have Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson. Younger, under more control, making less money. So if you bookend them, that's insanity, 100%. And it would make the guy on the bottom of the screen just absolutely ready to murder more people in Chicago than he already is.
It's all fine. Everything's okay.
Why is Alex reminding me of that scene from The Simpsons? I'm in danger right now.
Ralph Wiggum.
But let's be serious for a moment. Let's talk about what this one trade just did for this team. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. This is a 5 to 7 year rebuild at this moment because of the cap hit. Because now you have to bring on a new quarterback. Because now it's going to cost you the best GM and coach combo since Ernie Accorsi and Marty Schottenheimer. Because they're not going to, 2 coach of the years notwithstanding, he's gone. So is Barry. Because Jimmy's going to need a scapegoat in order to get his fucking stadium. You had Hall of Famer on the end. You had a local legend / first round talent at defensive back. You had a all-world running back who unfortunately had a catastrophic injury by the worst, dirtiest. He's almost as dirty as Draymond Green, Minka Fitzpatrick. Almost. You had the core of a team for the first time since Bernie Kosar, Ernest Biner, Webster Slaughter. I don't know many of the guys on the defensive side of the ball from that Browns era because I was still only going out there on vacation.
Carl Hairston, Field, Eddie Johnson, Mike Johnson.
But you had a core. Because that is the one thing these teams that have sustained success have. They have a core of players they build around. I don't know how they do it, but Kansas City. You got a quarterback, you got a tight end who's top 3 all time, and you have a dynamic pass rusher in Chris Jones. And you fill in everywhere else. In New England, you had Brady, you had Edelman, you had a defense. For whatever reason, Jimmy Haslam thought someone coming off a 27-game self-imposed suspension for being a crybaby and a fucking moron was going to lead this team to the promised land. You can tell he's from the South. I can't. Alex, I would much rather be the Bears. And you know what the scary part about that is? It's because you have talent on the field.
I mean, I do see the talent on the field, and there are moments of glimmers of hope where it's just like, oh, the ship could be right just a little bit with better coaching and better ownership and maybe a better GM, whatever it may be. But I think the overarching issue with all 3 of these teams that we just discussed right here is ownership. If ownership just figured it out and didn't make dumb decisions, none of these teams would be in the situations. But unfortunately, we are who we are.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll say quick hypothetical. You wake up 2 weeks after the season is over and you read that the Chicago Bears have hired Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski to be the GM and head coach. How would you feel?
I would say something has gone right finally. And now there's a pilot and a co-pilot who could probably put this plane in the right track.
Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, the common overlaying, idea here, Kevin Stefanski, I'm sorry, the name eludes me, who was the owner of the Bears, Woody Johnson, with the Jets. It's all the underlying theme with, but I think where the difference here is I completely agree with Mike that of the 3 of us here, Alex is in the catbird seat because they got all the talent. They just don't have the proper coaching. The general manager has actually, I think, done a pretty good job of getting the talent in with the assistance potentially of the ownership, kind of actually giving them the resources that he needs to bring in said talent. But it's the game day management of Eberflus and his flunkies at this point that's kind of stunted their growth, where they've lost 4 in a row. The Jets have always tried to be the Jets, where they try to be the Yankees, going out and getting that big high-priced talent, but forget about high-priced talent because he's only high-priced. To quote Roger Dorn there, it was bring in Favre, coming off of hot years in Green Bay, flounders out. Get in Rodgers, flounders out. With Cleveland, it's always been that realistically, outside of 2 years in the last 5, they've actually been competitive here. you had the original owner who brings them back, passes away, hands them off to his kid, who's much more invested in his soccer team. Haslam, we all thought, was actually going to be a little bit more hands-on, and he has been. The problem is he's a little too handsy being hands-on, where he's got his hands in too many other things, with the Watson thing, with certainly with the Johnny Manziel pick. So at this point, he's handcuffed very good general managers and potential coaches along the way to be able to go out and get the guys that he wants. Ray Farmer, the general manager, gets suspended for a month because Haslam tells Farmer to call down to the sideline in the middle of a game to put Johnny Manziel in when Brian Hoyer's got him at 7-4 that year.
James, can I ask you a question? And just to see the look on Alex's face, I'm going to ask it this way. Is Jimmy Haslam the great value Jerry Jones?
That's before we actually wrap this segment up. Let's actually throw that wild card in there, because if John was here, John would have actually taken the Cleveland Browns, and I would have been assigned the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys actually go out and sign Dak Prescott to the largest guaranteed money contract in NFL history the day before they go out and beat Deshaun Watson and smack him around in the opener. And now he's let's take a look at just the last month. They've lost 4 out of 5. They've got a receiver demanding that curtains be put up because he can't catch a ball in the end zone. He's threatened the jobs of his own his own call-in show on local radio. And his quarterback is basically done for the year with hip surgery.
Can I also give you another crazy stat of the night? Jake Paul has more wins at AT&T Stadium this year than the Dallas Cowboys.
That's not completely true, because visual evidence or it didn't actually happen, and 80,000 people couldn't actually watch it was reported, or it's now climbed over 100,000.
80 million people, not 1,000. I went to bed.
Very quickly, if we've actually still got Alex, we can kind of close out the first half of the show here.
Well, let's be honest here. We're actually not going to get into the second one there, because next week we will have a very special guest correspondent on the show. And no, we didn't pay him. He owes his life to me, quite literally. It's my son, Zachary, who was in attendance last night at the UFC event at Madison Square Garden, and he will give us a breakdown of the entire evening, because as he said, the first 6 fights of the night were better than anything else he saw, and he watches them all. So let's get to what we were hoping would be an absolute ass beating, and it turned into the worst choreographed dance this side of Dancing with the Stars. Alex, I'm going to go to you. Are you more pissed Mike Tyson didn't break his fucking face, or that you couldn't watch the fight?
I think my Netflix is still loading right now as we speak.
Have you seen?
Yeah.
Have you seen the NFL things?
Yes.
You see Saquon take off and he stops in midair.
That one's good. The Cavs did one. I want to say like it was based off of Friday night where something great happened and it cycled through before, like, there was a dunk or something. Everyone's getting in on this. It's hilarious.
I will just say, like, I was just curious to kind of see what we would get out of nearly 60-year-old Mike Tyson. But at the end of the day, like, I knew what was to be had. It was going to be another Jake Paul, win one way or the other, by hook or by crook. Because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I consider myself a little bit of a boxing connoisseur. He's not a boxer by any stretch. Fighting MMA fighters in a boxing ring when they're not, stand-up fighters, kind of speaks for itself. And then him trying to call out, I guess, legitimate or credible boxers. He's just doing it just to kind of create some hype around his name, because if he actually went in the ring with a credible boxer that's not 60 years old or not, his next fight. I don't know if you guys heard it. He's fighting Jimmy Carter next. That's probably like May
I
of next
saw
year.
that meme. That was good.
Hold
Over
on,
under
we got
if,
a better one than that.
if he and I could care less about boxing because I think it's a dead sport at this particular point. But over under if he were ever step in the ring with Canelo of 5 rounds before he's lying flat on his back looking up at the lights.
I would give him 2 rounds at most, and one of them would be just because he's going to run for his life. But 2 of them he would be put to sleep without a doubt.
I sent you another one, Alex. Take a look when you get a second.
Other than that, that's really kind of how I feel about the whole Jake Paul situation, and I feel the same way about his brother as well too. They both can go someplace. I'm not really interested in anything that they do.
I just find it funny that they grew up in Westlake, which is one of the more affluent suburbs on the west side, and they try and make it sound like they didn't have any money. Shut the fuck up. Anybody who's
The difference is that we've had this argument before, and Alex has been on the show with us. We actually had it the last time John was with us with the 4 horsemen. It's East Side versus West Side, Kelsey's and the Pauls. The difference is that Logan Paul is a hell of an athlete. He's a loudmouth, but he's a hell of an athlete. Jake Paul, we don't know because he hasn't actually fought anybody. He's fought in aging, Tyron Woodley, who his best days were 3 or 4 years behind him in the octagon. He beat a 58-year-old Mike Tyson with 2-minute rounds last night where, had Tyson pushed the pace a little bit more, he would have caved Jake Paul's face in. Who's some of the other clowns that he's beaten,
Nate Robinson.
Not a fighter.
Right.
He's only fought one legitimate boxer and he lost.
Yeah,
I mean, what next? He's gonna call out Conor McGregor.
McGregor would kill him.
Yeah,
No, I think McGregor would actually try and kill him.
Ultimately, what's going to happen. There's going to be some type of caveat to it that he can't get hit in the face or like he can't get close to knocked out. There's always like the catches to it that are hitting in the clauses, and that's really what happened with this last fight with Mike Tyson.
Count.
What's that?
He gets a 15 count.
Yeah, it's kind of comical, honestly, but I was just if I was able to see it, and I'm glad I honestly didn't. It would have just been a big waste of time for me because you're getting a Mike Tyson who's clearly past his prime, and if he really wanted to hurt or bite Jake Paul, he probably could have, but he knew that the $20 million payday was kind of guaranteed, and then whatever else he's going to get for gate and tickets and shirts and whatever else that they sold.
The middleweight fight that they had, because there were 4 fights on the card. I saw the second one. That was fantastic. I did not get to see the highly controversial women's championship match because that's
Amanda Serrano got screwed.
That one, first of all, they said that was the screw job of the year. Some NFL player said she beat her twice and still lost both of them.
My favorite thing, she tweeted out, I landed 107 more punches. She got a point deducted, and I still lost 95-94.
But, I mean, that was good. You had to know that they were going to roll the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders out at Jerry's place, just for basically, hype up the guys in the crowd, all the bros in the crowd. I mean, for me, the highlight of the entire weekend from what I was able to see was, and we'll talk about it next week, but I figure I'll get it out of the way now because of the subject matter. Charles Oliveira beats Michael Chandler at UFC 309 last night, and the soon-to-be Cheeto in chief is sitting cage side, and Oliveira runs over, shakes the hand of somebody in the front row, and literally deadpans just walks right past him. There's a fantastic clip on Twitter, Mike. I will send it to you. It's hilarious. He just didn't even look at him. He knew he was there. He just walked right by him.
Hell yeah.
I'd have kicked the orange paint right off his face.
Nah, there was Secret Service. It ain't worth going down for that piece of garbage.
Cunt bucket.
So that ends this evening's hat trick at an hour and 11. Alex, you have got a very, very early
I do
wake up time.
I do. My
So
bed is
we're
calling me.
so we're gonna hit halftime. We're gonna say goodbye to Alex for the night, and then Jim and I will come back to you with the blast and with, of course, the translator.
Alex, it's been a pleasure. We're hopeful we can get you maybe back on here before the end of the year. We only got about 4 or 5 episodes left in 2024. I believe even if we can't get him on, Michael, he will be in our year-end celebration
Yeah.
with some of our OTRs and some of our favorite translators. But it's always a pleasure, my friend.
I appreciate you guys inviting me. Sorry I'm cutting out a little early, but if you guys have the schedule coming up for your remaining shows, please keep me in the loop. And if I can carve out some time, I would definitely like to be on from start to end.
We will send you a schedule here probably
you.
by the end of the week because I've only got a half week this week and I got some things lined up here for the show. So Mike and I are going to lay some stuff out this week, but going into the Thanksgiving weekend. But if we don't see you or talk to you by then, have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving holiday weekend, my friend.
You guys as well. Enjoy the time off. All right. Take care. Okay.
Have a great night,
see
buddy.
Thanks. See you guys.
And we will go to halftime. We'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Welcome back to the second half of the Wise Guys Sports Show, episode 91.
You changed.
I did. First of all, it was way too warm in here for that sweater, and have to rep my boys after the biggest win of the NFL season to this point.
Yeah, no, taking them for the ranks of the undefeated is a big move. And hey, listen, Josh played great.
If I can quote the wise man, they are now the one in Kansas City being 9-1.
Hey, listen, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Today they beat the man finally.
I mean, they've beaten him before, but this is the first time it's really happened by more than one score.
Yeah, I saw that. You want to hear something crazy? In 2020, Orange guy was in the Oval. Dak was out for the season. The Dodgers won the World Series. Buffalo beat Kansas City in the regular season. Kansas City wins the Super Bowl.
And you know what else happened in 2016?
That was 2020, but
Oh,
plenty.
but yeah, 3P would be good. Although the conversation that we've had on this show, and I also had with my family earlier today, is because they actually were saying they don't want Kansas City to win. Somebody else would be nice, but the thing is this team's a lot more tolerable and a lot classier of an organization than the Patriots were when they were this good going for a 3P.
Well, the Patriots never got close because I don't think they qualified for the AFC Championship game in either of the years they had a chance at a three-peat. But also they don't have 3 Super Bowls with asterisks on.
Very true, but Andy Reid's a class act. Travis Kelce's an entertaining sumbitch, and he's dating the most popular woman on the planet, who is getting more and more appealing, not just for her beliefs, but everything that we're starting to see of her outside, her being charitable, what she believes in, the messages that she puts. And quite honestly, I don't know if it's my father listening to them so much. Her music's not as terrible as everyone really says it is. Although I'm like in love with this new, I'm really getting into like female singers in rock bands or anything anymore, even more than usual.
Hey, everyone's got a hobby.
I found this sister group. It's 3 sisters from Mexico, and they're the hottest rock band, the hottest, most up and coming rock band in the world right now, called The Warning.
Send me stuff.
Very, very cool. They even do a few songs in Spanish, but it's the oldest sister is 24, plays the guitar and is one of the singers. The middle sister is 22, is drummer and lead sings on some songs, and the youngest is 19 and does backing vocals. And they did a cover of Enter Sandman 10 years ago that even Metallica commented on, and Kirk Hammond himself actually said, these girls are very talented. These girls have already opened for, and I can't even say girls because they're all young women at this point. They've opened for Guns N' Roses. They opened for the Foo Fighters. They actually went on tour with the Foo Fighters. They went out on the entire U.S. North American tour with Hailstorm, and they've opened for Metallica before.
That's impressive.
The cover that they did, the bassist was only 7 years old when they did Enter Sandman.
On that bass line?
And they've now taken the song and turned it into their own. I have to send it to you, to where Metallica did, like, a bunch of artists got together and did what they call the Blackest album. It's a tribute. Remember when MTV used to do those tribute concerts years ago, where like Korn would do a song, and then like Saliva would do a song, with all the artists sitting there. Well, they actually did Enter Sandman, but they put their spin on it, and it's turned into one of their most popular songs. But I will definitely send you their stuff tomorrow. I heard like 2 songs and I got hooked on them.
Yeah, no, that's the way it usually works, and they're usually pretty good.
Yeah.
So Jim, let's get to our abbreviated blast tonight.
you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance, you haven't.
I still love its uke. Let's start in the middle. Let's talk a little Gino Auriemma, tying the recently retired Tara Vanderveer for most wins as a Division I college basketball coach. And listen, we've been hearing Gino Auriemma's name for 30 years. He's been in stores how long now? It's more than that, though.
I had this earlier and my system clicked out of it.
We figured they won. It was at 94 or 95. They won their first title.
There it is. He's 70 years old. His 1,216th win over number 14 North Carolina by 11, nonetheless. His record with UConn is 12-16 and 162 for an 88.2% winning percentage and 11 national championships, their most recent in 2016.
Jesus.
And they can break that record on Wednesday night against Fairleigh Dickinson.
Which they probably will.
Easily.
Hey, speaking of, do you see who won the lottery? Hold on.
The Dallas Wings.
Yeah. Won the that's where Paige is probably gonna end up going.
Yeah, she'll definitely be a top 3 pick. I could make an argument she's going to be number 1, but the girl from South Carolina is going to give her a run for her money for Player of the Year.
Okay. That'll work. So, hats off to Gino Auriemma. I remember the first time I heard his name was when I was at Brush, and I knew people that had family that worked at UConn. And I honestly had only seen very limited highlights of women's basketball at that point in time.
The LA Sparks came in second in that lottery. Can you imagine coming fresh off of an injury of Cameron Brink and Paige Beckers? Think of the marketability out there and also think of how good they're going to be in a few years.
Let me say this. Think about these things. Who's the woman from Vegas that just won the MVP?
Asia Wilson.
So in Vegas, you have Asia Wilson and my girl. Now her name is escaping me.
My biggest fear right now is that she ends up going third to Chicago and gets paired with Angel Reese.
I hope not. Kelsey Plum. So let's think about some of the.
You mean Angel Reese with her Tyrannosaurus arms?
Dude.
Rebound. Because I have a 1-inch vertical.
That used to be me. Now I can't jump.
Dude, you are the big Rican and probably still have a larger vertical than Angel Reese.
And a bad back. So it's Kelsey Plum and Asia Wilson in Vegas. You have Caitlin and what's her name in Indiana.
Aaliyah Boston.
Yep. If you get Paige and Cameron in LA to go with Sabrina and Brianna in New York, you're going to start seeing the marketability of the WNBA is going up through the roof. And remember, they just opted out of their CBA. So WNBA is going to have to start showing them the money.
Because if you look at it, Caitlin took the entire country by storm. Paige is not going to do that. She is not going to put up a Caitlin Clark type year. Nobody ever will. But the WNBA's viewership is going to continue to grow, especially in year 2 of Caitlin, now that they've got that playoff experience, but also with the influx of talent that you got coming in with all the Olympic, ladies. And then you throw Paige Beckers into there in a major market like Los Angeles. And let's actually call it for what it is. You've actually got, Cameron Brink is going to be a very good player and was a very good player in her rookie season until that injury. But Cameron Brink's going to end up making a lot more money for some of her off the court things. Paige Beckers is going to make a lot more money on the court, but definitely can do a lot more marketability afterwards. And, it's the WNBA. It's very much, I'm sorry that we have to have the conversation still, that you still have to sell yourself off the court, probably just as much, if not more, than you do on it. But it's the talent that's going to keep the eyes there, not what they're doing off of it. So Caitlin's run is going to continue. Angel Reese still being a vastly inferior player, like a lot of people thought, and now the natural rivalry that's building with there. And then maybe they can actually expose her for the fraud that she is. And then let's actually see her with, let's actually see, maybe could we get in the next 2 or 3 years, could we get Asia and Caitlin start developing that rivalry, maybe with with what's going on in New York, what could potentially happen here, later in the spring in Los Angeles.
I hope so. I enjoy the women's game. I really do. As far as pure basketball goes, I think it's more pure. And I'd like to add something to the blast real quick that we'll do last, but you know where I'm going. Talking about basketball. So let's get to DSG emergence from bankruptcy, and now FanDuel owns a fucking network. Come on, dude.
That was part of the agreement, as they've just come out of the half in for the late night. The Chargers lead the Bengals 24-6, and this will basically bury Cincinnati's season.
They've had a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, haven't they?
They have.
Because Burrow's playing better than most quarterbacks are, and they're still not winning.
So, according to the ESPN report published earlier this week from Alvin Gonzalez, the largest operation of regional networks, the bankruptcy has come to an end, and they formally approved their reorganization plan 20 months after the company filed for Chapter 11. And Diamond retains 27 teams in its portfolio between the MLB, NBA, and NHL. What this is going to mean is that some teams are actually moved to local privatized type networks. But what's going to be interesting is that if you buy the seasonal packages for like NBA League Pass, this is not going to affect you. If you have ESPN Plus, which gets you NHL Game Center, or not Center Ice, which is the pay-per-view package, but NHL Game Center, it's not going to affect you. If you have the MLB ticket or MLB TV, it's not going to affect you. But what you will be able to start doing is you're going to be able to start buying game by game basis if you don't want to buy full season packages, or you can actually buy, like if Mike wanted to buy the entire Cleveland Cavaliers out of market schedule for the entire season, he'll be able to do that. If he only wanted to buy one game for like $3 or $4 a night, he'll be able to do that.
It's not terrible. I mean, you figure if you did that, even if it was $4.
So it says starting December 5th, Diamond will offer single game pricing for its NBA and NHL teams starting at $6.99. It remains to be seen whether the company will provide similar pay-per-view options for MLB teams next season. You also have to figure that's something that's still working out, because the season just ended 2 weeks ago, and we've got 4 more months before we're playing meaningful baseball again.
Very true. Let me talk to you about that price point for just a second.
Who are you, Kelly Knight?
Yeah. But let me talk about the price point. Let me talk about the price point for just a second. So I was telling Jim this. I was out door dashing the other night, and I broke down, and I spent the $9.99 to get on the NBA app the radio broadcast for the Cleveland. It's all teams actually, but the radio broadcast of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the entire season. Spent $9.99. You're telling me they're going to do one game at a time for $7? Two words come to mind, Jim. Fuck that.
I gotta say, now that you've actually done that, has Tim Alcorn grown on you a little bit?
A little bit, because I listened to a couple games last year, and I started listening to Cavs radio back when Joe Tate was doing it. Oh, by the way, it's called the Joe Tate Perch. Did you know that?
Yeah, the Joe Tate. Yep, the Joe Tate Perch at Romo Fijo.
So when I started listening on the radio, obviously it was Joe Tate, and that was when I was living in Cleveland. And then as I got back into the Cavs, when the smartphones coming out, it was John Michael. And I love the way John Michael calls games. And of course, we lose Fred. And John Michael does the Gary Cohen and goes from the radio booth to the TV booth with AC. And I had listened to him a couple of times, and I don't know if it was just because the Cavs weren't playing well and this was going on, but the last couple of nights, he doesn't say the score enough for me. Not to be Brockmeyer, but he doesn't say the score much. But him and Jim Chones have a great flow between them. Jim Chones basically said he would have assaulted 2 or 3 players tonight, which was fucking amazing. But the other cool thing with the NBA ID is that you get free weekends. Like there'll be certain weekends that they will run free games. So I was watching John and AC on here with my $9.99 pass. So I will have the radio for every Cavs game from here until, I listened to the first 2 rounds of the playoffs in 2018 was the last year I did it. And I listened to I listened all the way through the end of the finals on the radio. So for $9, I listened to 82, probably 110, 115 games. So you're telling me they're going to sell one game at $7? No, thanks. I'll spend 10 and get radio for the whole thing and watch highlights on YouTube, or with the YouTube TV, I can watch like Tuesday night. I'll be watching. So let's get to your boy at the very beginning there. And congratulations to Connor McDavid.
C. McD hits 1,000 points, ironically enough, on a goal set up from his line mate, Leon Draisaitl. He becomes the 4th fastest player in history to hit 1,000 games, and also the 4th youngest.
I didn't realize he was the 4th youngest. I knew he was the 4th fastest. I remember you telling me that the other day when we spoke. But the 4th youngest, who was Gretzky the youngest?
Gretzky was the youngest.
That doesn't shock me one bit.
I'm pulling the story back up here because it's not the same 4 guys in that regard. Where'd it go? Here it is. He hits the McDavid is 27, reached 1,000 points in his 659th game. Gretzky was the fastest at 424. Mario was at 513. Mike Bossy was at 656. So McDavid was only 3 games short of breaking Bossy. He's also the 99th player to reach 1,000 points.
How many games did Gretzky do it in again?
424. But Gretzky also played in an era where nobody really lifted the puck. If you look at a lot of Gretzky's goals, a lot of them are low on the ice shots that go 5-hole or they go short to the glove side. Mario and Bossy were certainly finesse players that could elevate the puck. Gretzky never really was an elevate the puck kind of guy, but it was also where a lot more goaltenders didn't actually play stand-up or hybrids or butterflies. They were all basically kind of stand-up goaltenders, so it was a lot easier to beat them along the ice because they weren't halfway down to the ice with their stances. And I'm not taking anything away from Gretzky, even though he actually came out as a scumbag supporting, the Cheeto earlier this week, because think of who his daughter's married to.
Yeah. But No, I'm not speaking of him at all. Because hit the Chappelle.
Quite frankly, I'm a worthless fucking fat ass who shits his pants.
Well, there's that too. That's 2.4 points a game. That's insanity.
He beat Nashville 3-2 in that game. I don't think it was the game winner because it was early in the second period, but he's dominated Nashville. He's run his point streak against Nashville to 15 games, scoring 36 points in those games.
Dude.
Now, we talked in the first half of the show of who defend your dumpster fire in the NFL. The Nashville Predators are quickly turning into the dumpster fire of the NHL this year. After they go out and they sign Stamkos, they get Ryan O'Reilly last year. They have the big free agency move. They are 5-9-3 and sitting second last in the Central Division at the quarter pole.
Because I know when we did our NHL preview, you were pretty high on them.
As a matter of fact, they are now mathematically at the time that they were seventh in that division. They have now fallen behind the Chicago Blackhawks for not only the worst in the division, but they are the worst team in the NHL right now. They are tied at 13 points, but they only have 5 regulation. They've got 5 wins overall, 4 in regulation. The Blackhawks have 6 wins overall. So mathematically, the Nashville Predators are the worst team in the NHL with all that talent.
But why do you think that is? And I just want to touch on this just for a second because that was a pretty big talent haul that they took.
I think it's
terrible.
I don't think it's the fact that they went out and they got the talent. They got a lot of the aging talent and didn't really address anything else between Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Ryan O'Reilly, 3 aging guys on the back half of their careers. Roman Josi is not getting any younger, and they're wasting what time they have left of him. Pekka Rinne's not there anymore. It's a lot of weight. I mean, they have the best penalty kill, but they are 21st in scoring in the league right now. Actually, I take that back. They're 21st in goals allowed, and they are only averaging 2.28 goals per game.
That's insanity. That is clinical insanity.
Their leader in goals right now is Philip Forsberg, who's only got 8.
What? I don't mean to laugh because that's not right. But Jim, I'd like to spend 5 minutes on the reason the city in which you sit in and that I love needs to take that stadium on the lake and burn it the fuck down and everybody go to Romo Fijo, and that is the 15-0 Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes, you just got a 15-bell salute.
A 128-114 win today over the Charlotte Hornets. A shorthanded Cavaliers team because you figure Merrill is hurt. Okoro got hurt during the game, sprained left ankle, and Donovan Mitchell sat for rest tonight. And they put up 128 points, and Donovan Mitchell didn't fucking play. Wrap your head around that.
They're already 3.5 games ahead of Boston. And what's even scarier is they've already opened up an 8-game lead in the Central Division.
Well, there's only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference over 500. It's them and the Celtics.
Orlando's 8-6.
Okay, well, at the time I saw the thing, I think they were at 500.
Yeah, the Knicks are 7-6. So you've only got 4 teams in the entire conference over 500 right now.
And the whole oh, who have you played needs to go away. I'm sorry, you play your schedule, but the Cavaliers in the month of November have already. This will be their 16th or 15th game on Tuesday. By the way, after Tuesday, they don't play again until Sunday. No, they
which
play
is
Tuesday,
which
Wednesday.
is which is good because this between now and this is going to end a stretch of I want to say I'd actually have to do the math. I want to say it's like 9 games in 15 days. They play a game, get a day off. It's a travel day. Get a day off, travel day. So they win tonight. They get tomorrow off, where they're flying to Boston to play the Celtics, and then they get 3 days off, which is their longest stretch of rest in the entire first month of the season.
Yeah, and if they beat Boston, which is on the table, Jim, we've talked about this. Boston has issues. You're talking about going into the second round of the NBA Cup because they already put up 148 the other night, or 144 on their opening round game against Chicago. But let's talk about what the Cavs have to get to the end of the month. You got Boston on Tuesday. You have the Pelicans on Wednesday. Then you have your hiatus.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. You get the day off, you go to Boston, and then that night you got to fly back to be able to face the Pelicans the very next day. And then finally you get 3 days rest before you get the Raptors. And then you get 2 days off until you play the Hawks the night before Thanksgiving.
And then on Black Friday at 2:30, you're in Atlanta to play in another NBA Cup game. So theoretically, this team could be 19-1 at the end of November.
Yeah, it's certainly, I mean, this is actually good that you can rest, you can rest 45, to be able to see what you can get, have them at full strength, in time for, Tuesday night, especially as off the wall as he's gone. And even if Okoro gets hurt, now now with Kenny Atkinson, you run this bench this deep, you're not going to be able to thrust, somebody else into that spot. And probably here right around Thanksgiving, you're looking to have Max Strus start being able to work out with the team again.
Yeah, and so I know we called you today, Bobby and I being out running around. So I'm at McDonald's right before I hung up with you. Did you see the lizard in the bird's mouth?
Somewhat.
So I'm flipping through listening to stuff, and Draymond Green's podcast comes up, which, by the way, he's a much better podcast host than he is a douchebag. Which is shocking because he's a pretty good douchebag. But he does really well. This was taped after their game against the Cavs. And he's talking to Baron Davis, and he goes, they're a problem because you have two undersized guards funneling everybody to the two bigs who play good defense. And he said, the ball movement, he said, I'm flipping my head around going, where the fuck are these guys coming from? Listen, as much as we can't stand the guy, he's got 4 rings. He is probably a Hall of Famer. To hear players talk about this makes me feel better that this is not just taking advantage of a schedule where you're playing against teams that have guys that are hurt or they're sitting them or what have you. This makes me feel like this team can make noise.
He is a good interview when he's sitting in on, certain pregame shows, which we're going to talk about here in a second before we wrap up. But he's very good analytic when he's not, getting tossed out of games like he is for trying to heel hook the potential rookie of the year on Friday night.
Saw that. So the last thing on the Cavs I want to bring up to you, and then we can get to the really good news I think that we got today that I had sent to you. My favorite thing, Jim, and again, I make the jokes about being right about this. Kenny Atkinson is taking nothing for granted. I mean, he basically said, oh, how's it feel to be 15-0? And he goes, well, we're excited, but we have Tuesday night to come and we got to get ready for Boston.
Because if they win that game, they will officially. Right now, they are tied for the third, or they are tied for second with two other teams for the longest winning streak to open an NBA season. Golden State is at 24. They are not going to get to 24. No way, no how. But you have the Cavaliers, you have the 1996 Houston Rockets, and I'm trying to remember, it might have been the 1948-49 Washington Capitals that all started 15-0. I
Yeah.
know it's the Capitals. I couldn't remember the year.
You're right on that. It was the 93-94 Houston Rockets.
Who won a championship.
Yeah, and that's where I think, whereas the team that inhabits the lake for now is a shit show from top to bottom in the front office, this one is not. Dan Gilbert has put together and his partners have put together a phenomenal front office. Kobe Altman has done an amazing job on this rebuild. First as its GM, bringing guys back when after LeBron left to now.
Is it too soon to basically say that Kenny Atkinson, only 15 games into the season, has put his name atop the list for NBA Coach of the Year, even though we still have 60 games remaining?
Yeah, it's too early. And I will put this asterisk on it.
But he
If
is
Detroit-
still in the clubhouse.
Yeah, if Detroit gets in the playoffs, it's JB Bickerstaff.
Unless, if the Pistons squeak in, but let's say the Cavs end up with the top seed in the East, running back JB's roster.
Yeah, it's Kenny Atkinson. And look, we talked about this. We felt the coach was the weak link. And so far, we have been proven correct, which I say we hang our hat on that because we don't get a lot of shit right. But we were damn right about this. And speaking of things that have become right, James, you say it. Say it.
Inside the NBA will return. Stories coming out earlier today that a settlement has been reached by ESPN, ABC, Disney, and Warner Brothers Discovery that once the NBA moves to ESPN and NBC next year and the contract with Warner Brothers and Turner Sports ends, inside the NBA with Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal will be moved to ESPN ABC, but will be produced by Turner Sports and Warner Discovery in an unprecedented move that we have never seen before.
They had no choice. Being brutally honest, they had no choice. This is the preemptive studio show covering sports. It used to be Sports Center, and then ESPN let that fall at the fucking wayside. It used to be Game Day, and now Game Day has competition. There is no competition for this. This is the preemptive sports desk show with the best desk in any game. Although PK Subban and Mark Messier are hilarious. But I will say that
and you've also figured just like the two knuckleheads that are Shaq and Chuck have the perfect foil in Ernie Johnson, PK and Mess having a rotating lineup between Levy and Booch is the perfect foil there.
It really is. So I was very excited when I saw that because, I can't wait for Tuesday night because once I put the kid to bed, I'll be back down here with that on. I am very excited for these boys to keep it going because not only are they hilarious and they do stupid shit, but you know what? You're talking about three dudes in the Hall of Fame and maybe the best studio host that we have seen on a show in a long, long time. Honestly, if it's football, it's Boomer, the NFL. And basketball, it's Ernie Johnson. And by the way, Ernie's pretty good in the booth too, by the way, because he used to call the baseball playoffs for Turner.
And he still calls golf for Turner.
Yes, he does.
He's just got such a smooth delivery and voice and everything. Who's getting pushed into the Christmas tree this year? Please let
Shaq.
it
Shaq.
please let it be Chuck.
Chuck won't be able to get up. But James, we're at $1.52. What do you say we
shut up and just push the button already?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean!
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the YG Translator. It is the best segment of the night because, well, it's the final segment of the night. If we would have had Alex here, we would have discussed the origin of said translator once again. But now we will just simply talk about things that we talk about. And one of them is James's wonderful Chiron to start the segment.
I know I'm a week early for the shopping season.
You idiot. Oh my God. You know, there's no joke like that about that. Man goes to the doctor, older gentleman, and doctor says, "You have any problems going to the bathroom or anything?" He goes, "Nah, I get up in the middle of the night. I open the bathroom door and God turns the light on for me." Guy goes, "God turns the light on for you?" "Yeah, every time." So a week later, his wife, who goes to the same doctor, goes in and he says, "Your husband said something funny to me." He said, "When he goes to the bathroom in the middle of the night, God turns the light on for him." She goes, "Jesus Christ, he's peeing in the fridge again." So, James, I have a name for you. And I don't know if you've seen what happened, but your first name in the YZ Translator, sir, is LSU head coach Brian Kelly.
We thought what happened with that one coach getting pulled off of after screaming from his players was one thing. It's amazing what losing to Billy Napier will do to not only ruin your credibility, but also tank your season even further.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Did Billy Napier break LSU for a guy who's going to get canned at the end of the year?
Yeah, he did. What you got for me, bud?
Michael, your first name in the YZ Translator tonight, Doug Peterson.
I want to know how he left his coaching bags in Philly. Because he certainly didn't bring him to Jacksonville. Although, Nick Foles, Sunshine, I don't know.
Could it be the fact that he actually thought he wasn't going to need all the extra baggage because he was going to Sunshine? And the playbook might have been in them? Or his common sense?
I mean, he's going to need a new home like that team's going to need a new home when they renovate this fucking stadium, but I don't think he gets past the end of the year either.
I think he does just because, I mean, first of all, they're not going anywhere, but it's not good. It's, you know, we're still 6 games out. And now, I mean, with a win next week, the Buffalo Bills could clinch the AFC East. And
because he
now
goes, he East is dog shit.
And now are we starting to actually officially turn our attention to not so much who's going to clinch, but are we now actually talking about Coach Watch 2024?
I think we've been on Coach Watch 2024 for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, but the thing is that we've actually been thinking about it in college football. This is now really the first opportunity because we saw what happened with Arthur Blank, but now we start really things are getting a lot clearer as we can see who's going to be the victim of circumstance, who's going to be able to ride things out because of potential injuries, like a Stefanski. Mike McCarthy could be a victim of circumstance, or guys who just really shouldn't be there in the first place.
What do you say we set aside a segment on the show at the end of the year and we play Russian roulette with coaches' jobs?
I will cue up the shotgun sounds.
That's playing Nirvana, not Russian roulette. Yeah. Anyway, so James, your second and final name in tonight's Wisey Translator is, well, I have to go there. I really do. And your second and final name in the Wisey Translator is Juan Soto.
God, I hope this turns into a Manny Machado thing where he gets signed massively by one team, flames out and goes somewhere else, and then turns himself into an MVP candidate again. Because I know where you're going with this. And if he actually gets signed by the Mets for basically devil's money, just shy of $666 million, yeah, this is not going to end well.
No, it's not. And again, I have made my opinion on this very clear. I would prefer Pete Alonso and two top flight pitchers. Just me. But
I prefer at that point Pete Alonso and two pre-used top flight golf clubs than I would Juan Soto.
who used the top flight golf clubs? I think that would factor into my decision.
Jim Furyk and Sergio. So one is respectable and the other one is dog shit.
Which is which?
You figure maybe the club may not be dog shit, but it's basically going to be talked up as dog shit for the guy swinging it.
I'll accept that.
Because, hey, Sergio, a good carpenter never blames his tools. But the problem is that you're certainly not a carpenter, but you definitely are a tool.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
That's where I'm at with that one.
Michael, close us up for tonight.
It's your turn to give me one.
Oh yeah, that's right. Michael, it's late. I've had way too much pizza this weekend. I'm like I had Friday after I get the car back, I go to Domino's, and then today was a shakaroni at my aunt's. So yeah, I've had way more carbs in the last 48 hours than I probably had in the last month.
I made pizza yesterday.
So, Michael, your second name tonight in the YZ Translator, and this actually would be perfect for if Alex was still with us, but I'm gonna throw you a bone based off of our last segment, Matt Eberflus.
I'd like to point you to the first ever YZ Awards and the song I played for Tom Brady. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. See, we can't do it if I sing it, so, you know.
I really, really don't want to lose Bobby Babich to them. I really don't want to lose our DC, especially with the job that he's done, with the fact that you've got no Tre'Davious White. Matt Milano's at least another 3 to 4 weeks away from coming back. And the job that he's done with that defense.
He's done a great job. He's done a phenomenal
Especially
job.
with what they did today.
That entire staff has done a phenomenal job this season. I will say this about the Chiefs. And I'll ask you this. Are they going to sleepwalk and turn it on in January?
More than likely because of, I mean, they're certainly not running away as Cincinnati has now pulled this game to a 27-20 game. Just got the
Jesus.
ball back. But the Chefs right now, are 9-1. They've only got a 2-game lead over the Chargers, but here also come the Denver Broncos at 6-5. So you figure if the Chargers hold on and win this game, they're 7-3. They're only 2 back at Kansas City. Are the Chargers going to catch Kansas City? Probably not. But you got the Squealers at 8-2. The Texans and Colts are basically riding out for arguably the worst division in football right now, or certainly the worst. It's every year it's the division nobody wants to win, and this year it's running neck and neck with the NFC West, where the Cardinals are leading at 6-4, but the Rams and Seahawks and Niners are all 5-5, just 1 game back. So, I mean, the difference is that 49ers have underachieved, and the other three have quarterback play of guys who should be all pros and definitely are not living up to that standard. But let's actually see what Kansas City does to rebound from this loss going on the road, because they've been playing dangerous the whole week. I mean, they're certainly going to rebound because their next 2 games are at Carolina and home to the Raiders. So they should win those in a walk. But they still have to, the rest of their schedule, they still have to host the Chargers. Not an easy game. They have to go to Pittsburgh and go to Denver. So, I mean, there's 4 games right there on their schedule. And, oh, yeah, they have another bye week coming up in 3 weeks. They actually host the Clowns.
Very true. And, James, I would like to give you another number before we sign off for the night. And that number is 287. And why am I giving you 287? That's the amount of points the Chicago Bulls have given up in the last 2 games.
Yeah, but nobody plays defense in the NBA anymore.
Very true. So, as we mentioned earlier, next Sunday night, for at least a little bit of time, we will have our fight correspondent on, and that is my son, Zachary, who was at UFC 309 last night at Madison Square Garden. I have saved video he sent me. So I will send it to you, see if you can incorporate it somewhere. And that is episode 92. And if you think about it, we're going to get to 95 before the end of the year, before our holiday hiatus. And then we will come back strong with with really recapping the first week of the first 2 rounds of the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. And
then
we'll
also be teeing up for the NFL playoffs when we return very early in 2025.
And shortly thereafter, we'll be at episode 100, and we're going steamrolling into spring training and on. And possibly a very special episode come around spring training time. That's all I'm going to leave it at.
But probably by this time next week, we're also going to have our annual kind of Thanksgiving, closure to next week's show. And we also will have the schedule for the remaining shows through December, because next week will be our final show of November. But we'll have our December schedule. We'll let you know when we're going to take our hiatus, any kind of specialty shows we got coming up. So Mike and I will iron those out this week. Next week, I'll also be able to recap the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view, which is one of their big 4 and one of the more anticipated cards of the year. So we're going to be a little bit more combat sports heavy next week. We're definitely going to look back at Ohio State, Indiana. We got some big NFL games coming up. We're certainly going to talk about Cavs Celtics as the early game of the year in the NBA. So we're going to have a full boat next week, and again, especially with our first time guests. And I promise to kind of maybe take it easy on him, and
Rusty cunt bucket.
Might not be played all that much.
No, do it. He'll laugh.
Rusty cunt bucket.
It's my new favorite.
Yeah. But we will see you guys next Sunday night, same bad time, same bad channel. Because, well, we're batshit crazy.
Rusty cunt bucket.
We'll see you next week, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
You asshole.